Welcome to the first episode of the Soundz Unleashed podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jason, Plummo Plumridge, and I'm your host of Soundz Unleashed, a podcast that will explore the indie music and audio production scene in Australia and across the globe. The concept of music community, where the heartbeat of creativity, business and support all come together to shape a better world. In a world where music transcends boundaries and connects us all, we're diving deep into how artists, entrepreneurs and fans can collaborate to create more than just sound. Together we can create a movement powerful and creative. From the artistry that inspires to the business that sustains, this podcast explores how music and audio can truly change the world, one note at a time, with community spirit and focus. Soundz Unleashed is the creative product of Soundz, a wholly owned subsidiary of Vestinex Pty Ltd, an Australian privately held company headquartered in Sydney, New South Wales. The Soundz Unleashed podcast is designed to be an informative and community-focused discussion on topics impacting the independent music and audio creative industries in Australia and across the globe. Our episodes are planned to discuss topics such as music creation, methods, recording, live production, stage management, audio engineering, lighting, and including a range of discussions with guest interviewees from across independent industry, including artists, bands, and creative engineers. Each episode will introduce our listeners to up-and-coming artists across all genres as we seek to support and impact the independent music industry as a community. Today's episode is a discussion on the topic, the concept of community, a combination of business, artistry and support for a better world. In our first segment, we discuss issues faced by the indie music industry, which does not have the financial and marketing capacity of the major recording labels. Today's topic looks at the impacts of this and the strategies artists can put in place to increase their marketable image and get their music onto the domestic and global stages. In our second segment, we will look at Soundz, a new and emerging online music retailer facing very similar battles in getting established in a competitive and saturated market. We examine the important elements of growing a purpose-driven brand through the establishment of community-focused support models, and in turn increasing the expansion and market presence of the brand. Finally, we introduce to our listeners an up-and-coming indie rock band based out of Sydney, New South Wales, named Aphrodisiac, who recently released their debut EP, Are They Staring at Me? Whilst we don't have any guest artists on our first inaugural podcasts, in future episodes of Soundz Unleashed, we will have invited guests from the music, audio and supporting businesses and industry to discuss a range of topics. If any listeners are emerging indie artists, audio technicians and or business people in the music industry and they would like to pass on their knowledge and experience or get some exposure for their brand or their music, please get in contact with us on unleashed at ozsounds.com.au. Today's podcast is self-sponsored by Soundz, spelt OZSOUNDZ, an 100% online music accessories retail store providing high-quality music and audio accessories across Australia and the world at prices affordable for indie and emerging artists. Support our sponsors by visiting their website at ozsounds.com.au or following them on their social media sources, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. Welcome to all our new listeners as we launch the inaugural Soundz Unleashed podcast, a series where we seek to discuss those topics of importance to the independent music and audio industry and the music industry in general. The concept of community, a combination of business, artistry and support for a better world is the topic of today's discussion. And there are a number of challenges and barriers to independent artists gaining support and market value into the music industry. Some of those independent music artists face a range of challenges that can be significantly hinder their exposure in the industry. These barriers often stem from limited resources, lack of access to key networks, and structural imbalances in the music ecosystem. The major issues, as I see them, are oversaturation of the market. There's millions of songs uploaded daily to platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Tidal and SoundCloud. making it incredibly difficult to stand out for an independent artist, especially one that's not got limited support. Without the strong personal brand or niche, artists can get lost in the noise regardless of how talented they are or how good the song is. They're also battling algorithmic gatekeeping. Streaming algorithms prioritise engagement metrics like saves, shares and follows, which favour artists with larger followings to the detriment of the small independent artists who must struggle to compete. Independent artists often can't compete with the data-driven advantage of major label releases, and this is just fact. The introduction of artificial intelligence, or AI, also introduces the issue related to inflation of social media statistics for likes and follows that are not organic, not human-related in any way, in order to manipulate the platform's algorithms and present your particular music to users before other industry artists. There's obviously a lack of marketing budget. Independent artists usually fund their own marketing, which limits their ability to run ad campaigns, hire professional, even amateur PR or radio advertising support. The cost of production of both high-quality music videos and visuals that are essential to engaging audiences are a loss, and these drive uptake of the artist's creative products. Cost of good video, good audio engineering is essential to getting into the market. In similar fashion, audio professionals starting out are often unable to fund the equipment that's necessary to compete with independent suppliers in the corporate market. It's very competitive to get your first start as an audio engineer and to build your own reputation so that indie artists and artists alike will use your services. There's limited industry connections, and this is really important. The networking part of the business of music is exceedingly important. Like all forms of networking, business networking is a major driver of opportunity in the music world. The value of building networks in and out of the music and creative industries is imperative to your success. Without access to managers, booking agents, promoters or music supervisors, it's harder to land gigs, ink deals or obtain media coverage from primary sources. Getting yourselves onto playlist access and streaming bias. Editorial playlists on platforms like Spotify and Apple Music are powerful exposure tools, but they are often hard to access without label connections or proven track records. Curators tend to favour artists with prior success, perpetuating a cycle of limited visibility for newcomers and emerging artists. Financial instability. Many independent musicians juggle side jobs, reducing the time and energy they can dedicate to their craft and self-promotion. In like manner, businesses such as Soundz also have to be built over time, on multiple evenings and weekends, after full-time occupations in other industries. The cost of producing, distributing and marketing music adds up fast and impacts artists and business budgets without some form of financial support. A lot of independent artists are young and lack the strategic knowledge that many artists struggle with the business side of music, branding and brand management. And personal branding is just as highly important as it is for a business. Marketing, both standard marketing and digital. Social media is not enough, though it is an enabler. Audience development. Know your customer. You need to know who is using your music, who is listening to your music, what their demographics are, where are they in the world, what their geopolitical issues are. Those drive the amount of uptake of your songs. Analytics and data interpretation. What is the data actually telling you? How is it assessed? Is it valid data? Is it a proper sample? Or is the data skewed? Has it been impacted by those AI bots? So without guidance, independent artists, they often don't know where they are and how to focus their limited available efforts, time and money effectively. Performance and touring barriers. Booking shows as an independent artist can be difficult due to things like venue gatekeeping, local acts having priority, which is fair enough. High costs of touring, travel, accommodation, crew, limited van bases in new cities, these have to grow over time. The transport of equipment is a cost and a performance barrier. If we talk about media coverage, inequities in media coverage, music journalism and major blogs tend to focus on buzzworthy or label-supported artists. It's difficult for independent musicians to earn write-ups, reviews or interviews without having an established PR team and support behind them. And finally, don't underestimate the mental health and burnout. The pressure to constantly create content, stay visible, and self-manage everything can lead to burnout. Without a support network, many talented artists abandon their careers prematurely, and this is unacceptable. So now that we've discussed some of the challenges faced by independent artists and knowing that those challenges are both real and often systemic, let's examine what strategies and action plans artists can implement to overcome those challenges. Here is my breakdown of practical solutions to overcome each major barrier. If we talk about the oversaturation of the market, the solution is to build a distinct brand and a niche. You've got to be not like everybody else. So how do you do that, you may ask? Focus on what makes you unique. Your story, your sound, your aesthetic, your values. People are not only interested in your music or the skills, they're interested in who you are, in you itself, what you are, what you're about, your background, what influences your music and your non-music choices. Each of you are unique, so use that uniqueness to engage with your market or your community and increase your personal brand. Consistency in branding across your social media, visuals and music helps people to recognise you and remember you. So decide on your style early, what you stand for. Look for something that makes you stand out, such as a personal slogan or a fashion style or something in additional to your music style. Engage deeply with a small targeted audience instead of trying to reach everyone at the start. It is that know your customer, and once you do that, target communications to that particular audience. The bigger audience will grow from the initial seed, like a tree in a forest. So start by grounding your roots and then spread your branches. A couple of tips, use tools like Canva for consistent visual branding. Get a graphic artist from Fiverr to design your personal logo. And use platforms like Linktree to centralize your content and your messages. The problem with algorithmic gatekeeping, the solution is to play the algorithm strategically and don't fight it. You can't beat it on that basis. So encourage your pre-saves, advertise early when you're going to release new music, and do your saves, do your shares when releasing that new music, push it out against other platforms, and market them early to your followers, create teaser short videos on YouTube in the lead up to the release. The more pre-saves and shares and follows you get prior to encourages the algorithm to prioritize your content over others. Release music consistently every 6 to 8 weeks to stay relevant in the algorithmic cycles. If you're releasing all your tracks at one time, you'll be forgotten. So stop doing this, okay? Release singles prior to the EP. Release other versions of them. Perhaps you're doing a remix. Perhaps you're doing some other style later on. But, make sure you're pushing some sort of music content out 6 to 8 weeks. Advertise it and do those things. The other thing you can do is utilize short form content. So reels, your TikToks, with your music to boost the visibility. So, recently some research shows the B-reels, the background scenes, how you put your song together, your recording studio shorts, make them somewhat entertaining, maybe a little bit comedic, where relevant. But be who you are, not what you think people want you to be. Be genuine. People like the genuine, not the fake. You can use tools like Submit Hub, Muso Soup, or Groover to pitch your music directly to playlist creators and bloggers. And if you can get that into playlists, that will help increase your brand. You can also create your own playlists with music that is similar in style. Do that. Make sure your songs are at number one. In terms of lack of marketing budget, you've got to maximise what you've got. You can't just make money out of anywhere. So maximise the low-cost promotional strategies. Focus on organic growth through your social media storytelling and a direct fan engagement. Design social media marketing strategies that have suitable hooks and grab the viewer's attention within the first 3 to 5 seconds. If you don't do that, you're not going to get the followers you're desiring. So use that visual storytelling. Run small budget, high targeted ads. So, don't try and just market to the world. Understand who your customers are, target your ads around your music to that particular demographic, and once you've got that sorted, then the others will come. Partner with other indie artists for cross promotion. Do features and shout outs, and the guys that you'll be working with at the live music gigs and the pubs. Do that. Working with student universities to provide opportunities for audio engineers, lighting, and stage crew roles to help you out. They'll often do that as part of their courses. They get to know you in industry, and you might be able to recommend them to other artists. You can always use things like Tone Den and HyperEdit to run effective marketing campaigns with minimal spend. But and utilize the marketing tools provided by Meta. Not everybody likes Meta, of course, but it is essential really to getting your sound out there. In terms of limited industry connections, you have to be intentional in your networking. There is no doubt about it. You must attend industry meetups, conferences like South by Southwest, and local open mics and showcases. Join the online communities. Discord servers, Reddit groups, club rooms, that sort of stuff where the artists and professionals hang out. And be proactive about collaboration. Even a cold DM can lead to something valuable. Don't be afraid to ask. Just don't ask for favours, right? Offer something of value. So, like, you might be remixing someone else's track. You might listen to it and give them some ideas. You might offer to do some digital editing if that's what you're capable of doing, or sharing your studio time, right? Volunteer for other artists at shows if necessary. Help them out, and that will come back in spades and help you. Going back onto the playlists and streaming bias, focus on the smaller independent creators. It's very difficult to get into the big playlists straight off. So target user-generated playlists on Spotify. These are more often accessible and can still bring in thousands of plays. So stuff like Soundz Independent Artist Playlist, you can join that. Use services like Indie Mono, Daily Playlists, and Soundplate to submit your music, and build your own playlists. Like I said before, promote fellow indie artists, add their songs to your playlist. It can lead to reciprocity, and those are the things you want to get. You want to create that network. You can also do things like reach out to college radio stations or community radio groups, and local curators who are often a little bit more supportive of the indie artists. In terms of financial instability, you need to diversify your income streams. It's not just your music that's going to make you your money. So you need to have decent merch, T-shirts, posters, that sort of stuff that are reasonably priced, good graphically designed. So get some help with that, and design something that's visually eye-catching. You can always do the path of crowdfunding with Patreon and Ko-Fi. Sync licensing, so sites via Songtrader and MusicBed, but try the other stuff first. Virtual shows or fan experiences. We proved during COVID that this was a hell of a good way to engage with audiences. People like Delta Goodrum did it fantastically, as did others. Apply for grants and funding from organisations that support the arts. Okay, there are grant programs out there. New South Wales government does them, and there's a whole bunch of others that do as well, and do that. But start small. Even $50 a month for Patreon with 10 superfans can help cover some essential costs. You know your worth when you go to the gigs. Try and encourage ticket sales, that sort of stuff, and you'll make more money out of that to focus on your career. Lack of strategic knowledge. So treat yourself like a startup, because that's essentially what you are, even if you've been a little bit in the industry. Invest in your learning. Watch YouTube breakdowns. Great one is Indepreneur by Adam Ivey. Around the music business. Read music business books. Something like All You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman. There are great resources out there now online. And use basic tools for tracking your performance. Spotify for Artists, Chartmetric, the free version. Google Analytics for your site. And create a release plan for each song. Don't just drop it and hope. Okay, have a plan, a systemic plan for how you're going to drop it, when you're going to drop it. Even down to time of day when your followers, etc., are more active. In terms of performance and touring barriers, start hyperlocal, then expand. Okay, build a local fan base first by performing in community events, coffee shops, indie venues. Host your own small events, house shows, pop-ups, theme nights, etc. And use tools like Sofa Sounds, Bands in Town, Indie on the Move to find gigs and organise mini tours. Like I said, the virtual shows is really good. It's lower cost and it's a wider reach, and it'll get your music out there. Don't overplay the organisations either, right? Don't play the same place all the time, unless it's a paid gig, of course. People will get bored with that. So, play different gigs, space them out a bit, encourage people to come along to those bigger gigs. The inequities in media coverage: build relationships with the indie media. So, pitch to smaller blogs and college radio first. They're often more open to emerging voices. Write personalised emails with a compelling story, not just a drop a link and then hope that works. It won't. Use press platforms if you like Muso, Soup, Distribute Kings, and PR agents if you've got some budget. Make sure you've got some sort of electronic press kit. Have it prepared. Make it easy for the press to cover you. Tell them a bit about yourselves, what you're trying to achieve, where you're from, what your background is, that sort of stuff. And most importantly, mental health and burnout, right? Build a sustainable rhythm. Set yourself some boundaries. Balance your creation, promotion, and your rest. It's really important. Okay, if you burn out trying to get this career started, you're going to have some major difficulties. Build a support system. Connect with other artists for shared encouragement. Remember, it's a marathon, your career, not a sprint. So use planning tools. Use Notion or Trello. Stay organised. Know when you've got to do things. Know when you want to drop new songs and materials. Know when you want to do your social media posts, but don't make them on top of each other. We don't want you feeling overwhelmed. Take regular rest breaks away from music. I know that sounds strange, but if you're in burnout, your music career will suffer. So I find a couple of pieces of advice. Don't try to do everything at once. Right? Focus on making great music consistently, growing and engaging a small but loyal fan base, and in learning and adapting as you go. You can break through without a major label, but it takes strategy, patience, community, and support. So who is Soundz? Soundz is a new startup, 100% online music accessories and audio equipment store, headquartered in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. Soundz is a family-owned business, owned and operated by us, and I'm Jason, the founder. Our objective, though, is to be a business with a grassroots culture and focus on helping the indie and upcoming artists with the right equipment. We want to focus on highlighting and spotlighting local artists across the country through our social and online media, and thus help them to increase their own brand and careers as we build our brand in the market. We actually want to create a community of musicians and audio engineers and build our business, and together we both can create a better music focus for indie artists. So, where do we fit? We essentially are no different to you as independent artists, considering we're also a startup business with grand ideas for building a well-recognised, reputable brand in the marketplace, both for our products and services to the music and audio industries. It's my vision to support independent artists and groups as they attempt to grow their careers. They're not backed by the might and money of the major record labels. In both cases, we're competing in a competitive industry that's saturated and largely controlled by those larger businesses. Only by working together for the greater good and benefit of all those involved can we take a section of the market back and support live local music and venues, which over the years, as you've seen, have been dwindling due to financial pressures, etc. Those live music venues are essential for indie artists. Don't get me wrong, the large record labels, studios and equipment manufacturers and distributors play a very important part in creative industries for artists who are successful enough to attain global stardom. They are the ones that have the capacity and funding to bring internationally recognised artists to our shores for their fan base and for the work that they quite rightly demand their financial returns. Soundz has been established as a family project to grow and enhance a brand into a recognisable business entity which seeks to support independent music, audio professionals and venues, and we need your support to do that so that we can support you. And one of our sponsorship models is that a portion of our profits, once established, of course, in the brand, is to provide you with financial and non-financial support. Whilst it's still in its infancy, we do have planned strategies provided we can attain sufficient finances for our retail operations, to support the industry, which includes the following things. Artists, individual artists, bands and engineers sponsorship programs. As a family-owned music business, where we have been in and around music for about 4 decades, we understand the struggles faced by small independent artists. So Soundz is establishing a sponsorship fund from that revenue that we earn in the retail side of the business. It's our dream to own and operate our own recording studio and label that can support local independent artists. It's a big dream, but if it can be achieved, what a rush that'll be to have achieved that together. I'm focused 100% on indie and emerging artists. I'm not into this for glory or anything like that. I want to support the industry. The idea behind the sponsorship program is that 10%, which may increase later on depending on how we go, of our net profit after expenses will be retained for funding our artist and audio support programs, which can include sponsorship of music events through either competitions or gigs. We intend to, where practical, arrange and fund music events comprising of probably competition-based gigs at selected venues with funded prize money or equipment, and arranging and funding events for local artists to perform in festival-style events. There's lots of complex processes that need to be put in place for those things. This is not only our view, not only supports local artists and engineers and bands, but also the venues who are prepared to host live music and run it up. There's lots of business bureaucracy that needs to be gone through to make that and achieve that, including things like security at events, etc. And we have to support those live venues because that's an extremely important element of our industry, and it's at a time when live venues are unable to continue operations in a lot of cases. Another part of the sponsorship program might be that we fund partial or full equipment and services support. So secondly, we could fund music and audio equipment, or provide you with funding for your next mix, record, mastering of a single EP or eventually an album, depending on how it is. This is an example of a retail-based business in industry that is focused on and has a purpose to support those emerging artists, and also the engineers, etc., that and lighting and everybody that's involved in industry that is supporting local and emerging artists. It's not a one-man show. We'll of course have to work out the logistics of the selection processes, through nominations or similar, perhaps based on a public voting style system. I'd be interested in your comments on that. Finally, networking events. We said that earlier. They're extremely important for indie and emerging artists in industry. You need to meet with your peers, your other industry representatives from across the local area, then obviously the national group, and then potentially even globally. It's our intention to provide support through arranging and funding networking opportunities through the Soundz Support Fund. These and many other ideas that we have not even thought of yet could possibly become a reality to support local artists. And now to our final part of our podcast, episode 1, and I'm really glad you've joined us. I hope you've enjoyed it. In each episode, we'll be seeking to highlight a featured independent artist or band, and today's contender is Aphrodisiac, a local Sydney-based indie rock band made up of 5 local lads: Phoenix, Oscar, Dylan, Ben and Zane. Aphrodisiac hail from all corners of Sydney and originally met while pursuing songwriting and performance degrees at JMC Music Academy. Aphrodisiac draws inspiration from Australian indie and Brit rock, blending punchy riffs with laid-back grooves and larger-than-life choruses. Their music aims to inspire the pursuit of childlike fun, and their debut video, Asphyxiation, shows that, and to challenge societal pressures around conformity. Aphrodisiac has been active in Sydney's live music scene, performing at various venues and events. They've shared the stage with other indie rock acts, such as Camino Gold, Club Halifax and Southwest Corduroy. Their performances are known for their energetic and engaging presence, contributing to the vibrant local music culture. The group's debut music video, Asphyxiation, filmed in 2024, features the lads acting the larrikin on and around the tennis court in a local park, engaging in a carefree frivolity, including colour fighting in contrast to the white clothing. You can watch their official music video for Asphyxiation on YouTube, at youtube.com/@aphrodisiacmusic, APHRODISIACMUSIC. And their debut EP, Are They Staring at Me, is now available on all formats and streaming services. So I'd recommend you go and have a look at that. For more information about their music and upcoming shows, you can visit their Linktree page, which is at linktree/aphrodisiacmusic. Finally, thanks for listening to our first podcast of Soundz Unleashed. We appreciate your support on this being our first one. Any comments about content, or if you'd like to be involved, please let us know. Contact us on info@ozsounds.com.au. It's our intention to initially make this a monthly podcast with a view to producing more episodes resulting in a fortnightly or weekly episode. That's just due to the fact that we have day jobs. We are looking for independent artists and groups and other industry experts to join our podcast and talk about their own experiences in the indie music industry. We haven't finalised our next episode yet, but we will be having either an independent artist or a session musician come in and talk to us about how their careers have gone. And that's going to be across a wide range of venues and genres and impacts in industry, etc. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please click subscribe to our podcast on our social media and YouTube. Soundz Unleashed is available on all podcast platforms, and our links are in our link tree at linktr.ee/OzSounds, OZSOUNDZ. We look forward to catching you at podcast number 2. And please provide any comments to us through our website links, and we will hopefully see you on the next one.